So, with football right around the corner, fantasy football is also right around the corner. So, you know what we got to do. These are three running backs that I would avoid and target in your fantasy draft. Now, for a first round basis, one of the first guys I'm targeting, especially in the late first round, is James Cook. Now, this guy has one of the safest floors in the first round, especially. He just came off a season with a little over 300 carries. He led the league in rushing yards. He is a touchdown machine, had 12 touchdowns this past season, had 16 the season prior. And plus, he is a big part of this offense. And with Joe Brady now sticking around as their head coach, the offense is not changing. This is definitely still going to be a run first offense because of how good their run game usually is. He may get a little lacked on when it comes to the receiving game just because of the addition to DJ Moore. But outside of that, this is a safe floor. This is a safe pick. Is one of the safest picks in the first round, especially in the late first round. Maybe if he falls to the second round, you will be lucky to grab him. Now, another guy I am avoiding is Christian McCaffrey. Now, listen, the upside, especially if he's healthy, is worth it for the mid first round. But listen, he is not going to do what he did last year. Last year, he led the team in receiving yards and rushing yards, absolutely backpacked this offense, and was the best fantasy player last year. But listen, that is not going to happen again. That is the sole reason that they brought in Mike Evans. They brought in Christian Kirk. They brought in Deshaun Stribling that they brought those guys in for the sole purpose so they wouldn't have to rely on Christian McCaffrey like that again. All of those guys, especially with a healthy George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall, is definitely going to take away from his workload and his volume. And on top of that, you got to think he is 30 years old and he still has Achilles tendonitis. Thing is, the upside is worth it. If he's healthy, he can still have a really good season, but it's too much of a risk to draft him in the middle of the first round. Next running back I am targeting in my fantasy draft is Omarion Hampton. In the 9 games he played last season, he only went below 10 carries one time. And now that he is the definite leader of this backfield, I can almost promise you he is going to get the volume, he's going to get the workload, especially with the offensive line coming back new, improved, and healthy. And on top of that, the addition of offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel, who really knows how to solidify a run game. And on top of that, the past 3 seasons, he has had a top 5 fantasy running back. Another guy I am avoiding is Jeremiah Love. This guy kind of has the same upside bait as what Ashton Genty did last season. But let me tell you why I don't think it's a good idea. So right now, Jeremiah Love is being picked in the third round of fantasy drafts usually. And let me tell you why that is a super huge risk and why I really don't like that. Because the Cardinals don't plan to be good this season. We all know that. But they also have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL, if not the toughest. And it's tough, especially for running backs and especially when it comes to fantasy. And you combine that with the fact that he is also in a very big running back room with Trey Benson, James Conner, and Tyler Algier, all guys who could easily eat away his workload. Okay. So it's a super huge risk, especially in the third round. He is a guy that I would sway away from in your fantasy draft. Now, a guy I don't feel like gets talked about enough, and a guy I am heavily targeting when it comes to fantasy drafts is Kenneth Walker. So we all know Zach Charbonnet took a lot of Kenneth Walker's spotlight, especially when it came to touchdowns. So Kenneth Walker left a lot of fantasy points on the table because of Zach Charbonnet. But when Kenneth Walker took over in the playoffs and had the whole backfield to himself, he did crazy good. And now he's in Kansas City in an offensive situation that probably works out better for him. And now he doesn't have anyone that will eat away his workload like it did in Seattle. And plus, these past couple of seasons, we have seen the Chiefs really like to run the ball and dump the ball off. Even with Eric Bieniemy stepping in over Matt Nagy, I could see that happening a good bunch too, especially since Patrick Mahomes is now coming off a torn ACL. They're possibly going to have to rely on that a little bit. So there is some receiving upside for Kenneth Walker. And plus, Kenneth Walker with this run game, we've seen Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt and guys like that succeed in this run game pretty solidly. I would expect some big things in the run game for Kenneth Walker as well. And the guy I am swaying away from is Aaron Jones. Now, I know this can be a enticing pick, especially when it comes to the later rounds in your draft, because you're looking for bench running backs, and that looks like a good option because he has been productive in this offense before. He has pretty good receiving upside, but to me is a risk that I'm going to step away from. Even when he was on the field last season, his production kind of dipped a little bit compared to last season. And on top of that, last season, you also had Jordan Mason cutting into his workload. He was doing solid as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Mason ate into his workload a little bit more and took a little bit off of Aaron Jones. And because of that, that is a risk I'm not willing to take in the later rounds.